I'm here with Matt White. He actually reached out to me via email, and he's got a great story. And so, Matt, thanks so much for the time. Maybe we could just start off with a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So, I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I grew up there for 14 years of my life, and then we moved to northern Jersey, a little town called Florham Park. I grew up here, and then I went to school in Pennsylvania. After that, worked inside of Philadelphia for a little while, and then came back to Jersey, where I now live in Randolph, New Jersey. It's northern Jersey, about a half hour from Pennsylvania. It's close to New York as well. I have three children, and I've been living out here now for 12 years. Actually, the same age as my middle daughter. That's how I keep track of how long we've been out here for.
Awesome, awesome. So, in an email, you mentioned to me that you grew up obese and you were a sedentary child. Can you give me an idea what your childhood was like?
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's actually interesting. So when I as I grew up, I was primarily into more intellectual things. Not that I was some genius or something like that, but I was more interested into learning, more into building clubhouses or and especially into technology and computers when they were first coming out. At the time, technology wasn't really available to everyone like it is now. So I was one of those computer geeks that would sit inside my room day in and day out. To be honest with you, the weekends would come and go, and it would just be one blur for me because I was so into the computers. And you can imagine sitting in front of a computer isn't the most active lifestyle that you could possibly have. Now, I also did some biking, play with my friends, went in the trees, but I was obese. I was overweight. In fact, I still remember whenever I would have to go clothes shopping with my mother, we would have to go for the big boys or the husky clothing or clothing that really, to be honest with you, Jason, was adult clothing that I was buying as a child, and it didn't really strike me as something different. I just said, oh, I need to go to get my pants at the husky store and then end up getting them, tailored by our neighbor who was a seamstress on top of that. But I didn't really think much of it, to be honest with you. It didn't really strike me as anything different. Now it's something very different. But growing back then, yeah, I was pretty much overweight, and it just became part of my lifestyle, and that's how I grew up. My family was obese, or I come from a family of heavy people with different types of chronic issues, and it just became the norm for me. And yeah, so that's pretty much how I grew up.
And I know you said you grew up, sedentary. What did food look like growing up for you?
Food.
Yeah, food specifically.
Well, that's an interesting question. So food itself has always been part of my life, and I think it always will be part of my life. So let me give you context around that. My mother, who was I would say a culinary teacher, not in the formal sense, but more in the informal sense. Back when Julia Child was coming to, popularity in the States, and cooking was becoming, something of real popularity in the country. My mother was out teaching different types of cooking cuisines. So, for example, she would have cooking classes on French cooking, or cooking classes on Chinese cooking, or cooking classes on whatever it might be. So what she would do is she would have cooking classes at local libraries where people would come. And this was at a time where cooking wasn't the most popular thing. People would, buy TV dinners, or do some level of cooking, maybe boil Uncle Ben's rice or something like that. But to actually do cooking, to roll up wontons, or to actually, make crepe Suzette, or to do things like that, was really unheard of. But my mother was going out and doing cooking lessons like this. And what I would do is I would follow her and help her with these cooking lessons. So that would mean, schlepping these boxes of fryers and cooking equipment from our house to our car into the libraries, where she would have cooking demonstrations and help people do cooking. Also, she had a catering company where she would do catering for people. We did all the cooking, or she did all the cooking at our house, and then would load up our freezers with different types of food. All the different hors d'oeuvres would be made by hand, and the food would be made by hand. And then she would cater that to the party. Also, cooking was just something that we did at the house. When I was young, my mother, she passed away, but my mother, I think, used to say that I was cooking at the age of 7 or 6. I get up on the stove and cook my own omelet. I don't know, to be honest with you, what the age was, but I've always cooked my entire life. It was just part of what I did, and from my perspective, it was more of I would eat to I would live to eat rather than eat to live. That was pretty much the way we grew up. If you felt good, you would eat. If you didn't feel good, you ate. If you just were bored, you ate. Food was just always there. It was just part of our life. It's actually interesting because you might have heard that a joke similar to this, or a punchline similar to this, where Mikey's over at his friend's John's house, and Mikey gets hurt on the tree. So John's mom says, "Oh, by the way, here's some potato chips, or here's a sandwich." And Mikey looks at her and says, after he puts it on his wound, "That's not helping." She says, "No, you're supposed to eat that." So you get the idea. That was honestly, my childhood. I didn't really think, twice of it. I now realize what the difference is. But long story short, the food just always part of our life, always part of our culture.
Yeah, it's a common thread, I think, with a lot of people that once you develop those relationships with food, especially like you said, the idea of eating to live instead of living to eat, or rather vice versa. That's a hard thing to break. Whenever every moment, good, bad, ugly,
That's right.
celebration calls for ice cream sundae, or you get any milestone calls for something. Then you get later in life, and then every day is a milestone. So every day is a Sunday. At least I know it was for me.
Yep.
So
That's right.
did you kind of steadily put on weight as you got into your teens, as you got into your 20s, or did you kind of maintain?
I guess maintaining would be the right word. Now, maintaining healthy versus not, is a different story. So, as I mentioned before, I grew up obese. I mean, I don't know what my weight was, but suffice to say, needing to wear husky and adult clothing, I can imagine my weight was just extremely off the charts, to be quite honest with you. Um, but as far as maintaining, I would say it's always been going up. It was something I didn't really think about, to be honest with you, as I grew up as a child, and I started realizing it more in my high school years and really going into college, and that's where I started to make some effects. But it really wasn't something that was abnormal to me, to be honest with you. To me, it was okay. I don't know. You eat. You gain weight. It's part of what you do, and maybe subconsciously, if I had to hypothesize about it, maybe it was. I thought, okay, this is my body type. People would always say, "Oh, you're big boned," or you're meant to be this way. It's genetics. I'm sure you've heard 1,005 different reasons or justifications why you're this way. Now, I'm not a doctor, so there probably are certain truths to that. But for me, these were things that I would use, and ultimately just say, okay, I just need the double extra large shirt, or I need the triple extra this, or whatever it was. It was just a way that I worked, and I didn't realize that things like having the inside of your pants worn out in a very quick way wasn't normal. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that not being able to fit between two chairs where everyone else could fit was not normal. So to answer your question, I think I just gained weight, on and on and on, and it just culminated to a point where I believe at my peak I was close to 300 pounds when all was said and done. So it's just a constant gaining of weight, little by little. Nothing special, to be honest with you.
Wow. And then I know you mentioned to me that in your family you had obesity, heart disease, diabetes, as well as other chronic diseases. Did you just kind of see that as your future? Was that just was that I hate to say it, but kind of normalized for you?
It's a really good point because the answer is yeah. Yeah, I saw it as this is just the way I grew up. This is my genetics, and whatever I do, and I guess I could adjust a few things in life, but maybe this is just part of what I need to do, and I just need to accept it or be aware of it. And to your point, it's funny. So my mother and my father have both passed away, but suffice to say, my family is pretty much. I come from a family of obesity. As you said, type 2 diabetes, other chronic diseases that come with it, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I mean, you name it. The whole suite is there. And what's interesting is that my father had quadruple bypass. That means, all four. You look at the Jazz Singer, the movie, if you ever have. I mean, it's literally you're opening up your entire chest, spreading your ribs apart in order to operate on your body. And I'm describing it that way because you would have thought that would, be a wake up call for me, or be something that would ultimately say, hey, by the way, Matt, you need to make a change. Like you're going to be heading down this path. And I guess intellectually I understood what was going on, but it didn't really have, a great effect on me. And same thing with my mother. My mother was overweight, had type 2 diabetes. And again, I just said, okay, this is part of my family. This is the way we grow up. Maybe I can adjust a few things, but I don't know, maybe I'm destined for this. And I just need to enjoy life, or just, eat the way I want to eat, live the way I want to live, and make sure whatever life I live, is at least enjoyable, or whatever, quote unquote enjoyable, because I can eat whatever foods I want to live. So to your point, yeah, I actually did. I saw it as, this is the book that was written for me. This is my destiny. This is what I need to follow. And in a way, I would say subconsciously, that was one of the justifications I used for being really unhealthy and just living not the most active or healthy lifestyle. That's the way I sort of justified it.
Yeah, not to get too personal, but you kind of alluded to it there, but you mentioned in a message to me that even your parents' passing of heart disease didn't seem to motivate you. Looking back, where was your mind at that it wasn't motivating?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, look, when I look at, I've been thinking about it, and what's interesting is that not only did my father pass away from heart disease. Now technically, from a medical standpoint, he passed away from pneumonia. So I was thinking maybe I looked at it and said, oh, my father didn't die of heart disease. He died of pneumonia, which, well, by the way, is a side effect of the fact that he had his complete, body operated on. And lo and behold, that leads to other side effects. Nothing comes for free. So maybe I kind of wrote it off that way. And then with my mother passing away, I just looked at, she technically died in a car accident. However, based on what we understand, there's a really high chance that she passed away from heart disease or some type of cardiac problem, which led to the car accident. But we don't believe that was the core reason why she had passed away. But again, I looked at it and just said, okay, so she passed away or whatever it might be. But it really wasn't the wake up call for me. And to be honest with you, even if I want to give it a triple factor or the triple X, I was actually in the first building, the first World Trade Center that got hit in 9/11. I was on the 39th floor. That wasn't even a wake up call for me, to be honest with you. So all three of those events weren't a wake up call for me. Why? I don't know. Maybe it was not personal enough for me. I know as crazy as it sounds, but maybe from a selfish standpoint, it wasn't as I don't know, connected. It was something that I kind of externalized and said, oh, okay, those are just things that happen, and they happen. You have to, those are part of life or whatever it might be. But honestly, I don't know. It's a good question. It really is, because looking back at it, I now understand that it's pretty traumatic, and it did affect a lot of my life and a lot of my choices. I buried myself in food in a lot of cases. I realize now, dealing with those with those situations.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned, thanks for sharing that. I think you also mentioned that you had tried some diets with no success. So, that tells me that at least there was something within you that wasn't completely happy with where you were.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Again, I didn't realize it at the time, but I wasn't happy where I was. And to your point of trying diets, I tried everything from, I'm not even sure if you've heard of some of these, but the grapefruit diet, the cabbage diet, the soup diet. In fact, there was Weight Watchers. Also, I did um, a calorie diet where you maximize the number of calories. I think it was 1,200 or 1,500 calories a day. And to be honest with you, I lost a lot of weight on it. Not that these diets, if you will, didn't work as far as losing weight, but they're not a sustainable lifestyle. They're not a thing I could do. But yeah, but that's just a sampling of some of the diets that I did. I still remember the calorie maximized diet where you eat within a certain amount of calories. Doesn't matter what you eat. I mean, you could eat hot dogs or Cheez-Its or whatever. As long as you're within the calories, you're okay. And it worked, to be honest with you. But I realize now, these things aren't healthy. But so, yeah, I think you're right. I think subconsciously, I probably wasn't happy where I was. It just wasn't something that I was dealing with. It was something that I was really pushing back. And later, now that I've dealt with a lot of that, I do realize there was a correlation between being unhappy or not dealing with it and the consequences of that. Definitely, it was something that I dealt with and realized that there was a reason why I wanted to lose weight or be more healthier and so on and so forth.
So, did you have a specific moment, a rock bottom, 180 degrees, something that kind of changed the trajectory?
Yeah, yeah. So, again, the setting is 9/11, my mother, my father, my family, myself, and at the time, I'm on blood pressure, I'm on cholesterol medicine, I'm on all these different medicines. The doctor's telling me, oh, we'll just give you another medicine, whatever it might be. I remember getting one of my examinations done. They said you have an enlarged heart, and that's because you're carrying the extra weight. And all this, wasn't enough of a wake-up call for me. So I think it was 2011 or maybe the beginning of 2012, I work in a company where we have a gym in the company. So I literally have to go inside my building and walk essentially past the gym in our building in order to get to my office. And every day I'd walk by this gym, and I'm like, you know what, this gym is here. I don't know, maybe it's something that I should start doing. Maybe I should start getting into this over here. And just a quick tangent. In 2003, I ran the New York City Marathon. This was actually the year when who was that famous rapper? Not Snoop Dogg, but I know who it was. It was one of the rappers. Anyway, I did that. I trained for that. Did the marathon in 2003, and then stopped, running at all. But then in 2011 or early 2012, being that I was walking by this gym, I said, you know what, I should really try to go to the gym. So I made a commitment. I think it was probably in 2012 as part of my New Year's resolution. I'm going to go to the gym, and I am going to go there for a half hour twice a week. And if I literally just stand there, if I walk around the gym, if I walk on the treadmill, whatever it is, I'm going to figure out something at the end of the day for a half hour every day. So I started going there once a week, then twice a week. And then I started getting addicted to it. I didn't realize that it was endorphins or dopamine or other types of good things happening to my body. I just said, you know what, this feels pretty good. And slowly but surely, I led up to 3 days a week. I was going. I was doing the elliptical. I was sweating. This was really good. It was a lot of fun. And started exercising on a regular basis. Increased the intensity on it. I felt really good. I started running outside. And then in the summer of 2012, I was starting to just feel a little bit of stress, or so I thought was stress. I told my wife, I said, Stace, I said, I just feel a little tightness in my chest. I feel a little bit of, I feel like I'm out of breath every once in a while, and so on and so forth. And I've always had some level of stress in my life, and I just felt, you know what, this is just more stress. I'll deal with it. No big deal. But then I told her, I said, once in a while, I'd have to stop. I said, just walking. I said, it's just weird. I had to stop. And she said, you know what? I want you to go to the doctor. And, a week, 2 weeks went by. She goes, really, you need to go to the doctor. My wife and I have this relationship where I said, I'll work it out. And, my wife, who loves me a lot, said, you really need to go. So I went to the doctor. And, we did a checkup and said, based on your experience, this is my intern, she said, based on your, not experience, but based on your life and based on your history, I really like you to see a cardiologist. I think it would be a good idea. So that day, he said, in fact, I'd like you to go that day. So he sent me over to a cardiologist. I go over to the cardiologist, and he does, I don't know, an EKG or a stress test. I didn't know he did an EKG on me. And he starts doing the examination. And after he's done, he's like, you know what? I'm not sure if I like what I see. I said, okay. He says, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go do catheterization. A catheterization is where they actually put a scope or a camera inside your body in order to look inside your heart to see if there's any blockages or damage or anything like that. And as he's setting up the appointment for me to go get a catheterization, he starts asking me questions. He says, so you have a family? I said, yeah, I have a family. He said, do you have kids? I said, yeah. And this, Jason, is where the light bulb starts going off, okay? So I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters. My oldest is 14. I have a 12-year-old, and then I have a 10-year-old son. And, the light bulb starts going off. It doesn't take a genius to start figuring out where he's going. And he said, do you want to see them get married? I said, yeah, I'd like to see them get married. He's like, well, let's see what's going on. Let's see what's happening. Let's take care of this. He's like, but you really need to start taking care of yourself. That was the light bulb moment. The light bulb moment was where I realized this is real. This is no longer, it could happen, it should happen, it might happen. There's a situation here where I might actually have heart damage or something really seriously wrong with my heart beyond what I described before. And this could affect actually seeing my children grow up. That really was something, that was the wake-up call. That was a call where I said, you know what? This is no longer dress rehearsal. This is no longer, it could happen. It's now happening to you. And the next day, I went in for that catheterization, and he said when they went in, they saw one of my arteries was 99% blocked. So that means that it's 1% away from being blocked, right? You do the math here, 100 minus 99, it's 1. So at that time, they also put a stent inside my heart. And it turns out that the blockage that I had, which was on the left side of my heart, is called the widowmaker. And all of it just started clicking for me as far as, Matt, you need to wake up. This is the real deal at this point. So believe it or not, the exercise that I was doing, according to my cardiologist, he said that was actually probably an insurance program, not only because it allowed you to realize that there was something wrong and or something not functioning properly inside your body, but also the exercise was probably helping keep the blood flowing through your artery, which was 99% blocked, believe it or not, as well. So that was really that was the 180 for me. That was the inflection point.
And real quick, what was your age at that point?
My age, let's see, it's 2017 minus 5, so that was 43 years old.
Wow. And if I'm hearing you right, you're basically saying you were a ticking time bomb.
You better believe it. Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, it sounds like you'd already gotten a little bit used to, the idea of exercise and things like that. But, you said it was a 180. So what did that, now that you're facing a new direction, you have, your 3 kids to look at, you have your wife, and your mind has kind of gotten, had the reset button pushed. What did those days and weeks look like for you? What was your map forward from that point?
At that point, it was, you have to do something different, Matt, if you want to have different results. And I just used that as the anchor for me to move forward. Now, as I said before, I've lost weight before, but I've always gained it back. So it's up and down and up and down. I've lost 40, 50 pounds, gained it back, and plus more. But I use that as the anchor to say, you know what, you need to do something different. And it just sat in my mind, and that was pretty much the reference point that I would use to say, you know what, this is the reason why you're making a change. And I look at my children, and it's hard, it was hard for me to describe to people. I think my wife was the one that understood it the most. Probably, actually, my family as well understood it probably as well. But for my children, I'm not sure if they really understand or really connect with it. They know that this happened, but I'm not sure if they really know what that can mean, or at least they haven't communicated that to me. But that was the anchor that I used going forward. So what I did was I joined Weight Watchers yet again. I joined them previously probably 2, 3, 4 times, to be honest with you. But I went into it with this commitment, saying, you know what, this is going to be it. This is going to be the thing that I use to motivate me. And that was a starting point. And through the program that they have at Weight Watchers, I use not only that anchor point, but other anchor points along the way in order to put myself on a healthy lifestyle, which I'm living now, an active lifestyle, which I'm putting right now. And it originally turned out with, okay, you know what, Matt, you need to lose weight in order to be healthy. So what I would do is just follow the program to lose weight. And I would eat, just different foods, whether it be hamburgers or whether it be vegetables and fruits or whatever it was, in the name of being anchored to that original point. But then, as I went on, I started getting other reasons why I wanted to do that 180, and it just strengthened that 180. I started getting addicted to feeling good. I started getting addicted to wearing clothing that I could buy off the rack. No longer did I have to buy suits from a special tailor and get them special tailored and buy 2 pairs of pants because the pants would get worn out. So I'd have, but the jacket wouldn't. And so it was the initial wake-up call from the blockage of my artery, but then other things started building onto that, and being able to walk up and down the stairs and play with my children or exercise without getting winded was like, holy smokes, you could actually do these things without getting winded, and then doing outdoor activities, and it just built on that little by little.
And what's the response been from your kids, your wife, those who are around you, having gone through this process and also realizing really truly how dire the situation was?
Well, for my kids, what's actually nice is they can put their hands around me. My son, who's extremely vocal and really speaks his feelings a lot, keeps saying, Dad, I could put my hands around you. In fact, I could put my hands around you and they can touch and overlap. And, those little things are their way of I believe, saying, wow, you're on the right track where you're doing things. From my wife's perspective, I think she's thankful that I'm not snoring anymore, that she doesn't have to put earplugs in just to go to sleep, with me. But, while it was completely awkward at first when people would say, Matt, you look good, or you look different, or what are you doing? What's going on? In fact, I work with some people who are from other countries who would say, wow, you reduced a lot and this, and it felt awkward. So the response was, really positive. But it was awkward at first, but I've gotten to a point where I really do appreciate it, and I really do embrace it, and I enjoy it a lot. But the response has been, really positive overall. I think it's been, really good for those reasons, as well as for the fact that I feel like a million times better. I feel, the way I describe it to people is, I feel like I was in a black and white movie or a black and white show for a while, and now I've entered the color age, or for maybe the millennials, I've gone from the non internet to the internet days, where it just feels totally different to me, and totally better. But it's definitely positive from everyone around me as well.
That's awesome. I know that, before you said you were on meds and you had they would just throw meds at you whenever you had a new thing come up. Where are you at medically now and with your medications? Obviously I know you come from a family of heart issues and things like that. So, what's the response with that, and maybe even your doctor's been to all this?
Yeah. So, because I have the stent in now, and this is something that it's funny. I look at the stent, I'm like, why do they have to do it? What it is? But I've gotten past that. I'm like, it is what it is. I look at that as my wake up call, if you will. Not that I'm proud of it per se, but I just use it as a thing that says, you know what, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have done this, Matt. You wouldn't be where you are. So because I have the stent, I need to take aspirin on a regular basis. As far as my blood pressure, I still take a blood pressure medication, a very low dosage for that. And as far as cholesterol, I take a low dosage for that. So they're lower dosages of them overall, but it's actually headed off a lot of the medications that I would have had to have taken otherwise. They were ready to put me on even more medications. I was on some other medications as well. I don't remember, to be honest with you, what they were, but I was on some other ones. I've reduced off of those now at this point, but there's some, just low-level medication that I'm on overall because of my family history and because of my stent as well, my heart disease.
Awesome. And what are you enjoying activity-wise now?
So I enjoy a lot of things, but my main activity that I'm doing right now is trail running. So I started as part of my exercise routine, originally in the gym, and then slowly it started growing on itself. And what I realize now was because of the different chemicals in my body, the dopamine and the serotonin, and just feeling great, and the endorphins, realizing that I was starting to getting addicted to them. And I said, you know what, I want to go outside. I want to start doing things, out on the outdoors. So I started doing running outside, and I was running inside the streets. And what was funny is I remember one of the first years I was running in the winter. I was running. I've been running all year round, and I said, "What am I going to do in the wintertime?" I go, "I guess I have to go to the gym or whatever." And then I started doing some research on the internet, and I said, "Wow, people go outside in the winter. This is kind of weird. I guess you can go outside in the winter and do things." And I've always done skiing, but didn't really think of outdoors more than just skiing or walking in the snow. So when I remember the first year that I went outside, running in the winter, I put on my ski pants and my parker and this and that, and I put on my face mask. And I remember, I know, I remember people saying to me, "Wow, were you outside running? I saw you on the road." I'd find the main roads that were plowed, and I'd go up and down them. And then slowly but surely, it built on itself, and I was running, all year round, and I tripped upon people running in the trails, and I said, "Wow, that looks kind of cool." So I started running in the trails, and it started building on itself, a little bit at a time. And now I pretty much exclusively run in the trails, and I do a lot. Really running is my main thing. So I've done a few marathons, and I've done some things bigger than that. And then as I was starting to do running more and more, I said, you know what are other people doing out there? And I tripped upon this idea of ultra marathons, and I'm like, what is that? What are these people doing? I always like to push myself. I always believe that that whatever you think of in your mind, whatever you believe in, you can do. It's just a matter of how to get there, as long as your mind is set for it. In fact, when I ran the marathon in 2003, I had one of my finishing photos mounted, and in the bottom of it, I just have a saying that says, "Whatever you set your mind to, you can do." So building on what I do, which is outdoor trail running, I started getting into ultra running, and I've done now a couple 50Ks. but I'm now signed up for a 50 miler. So this year, my goal is to do a 50 miler. So that's where I'm at now. So really, trail running is my thing. So when I go on vacations or when I go to different places with my son, who does ice hockey, we do a lot of traveling. What I'll do is I'll look ahead of time at what trails do they have or what parks do they have, how do I get out there? And my wife is really good. She's really supportive. So what I'll do is I'll go out early in the morning and go for a run in some trail that I never ran before. And I love just exploring the outdoors and being, with the nature, seeing fox and bear or deer or, whatever else is out there. So trail running, in a long-winded way is my main activity now that I really enjoy.
That's awesome. Looking back on the last, several years of your life and what life's like now, is there anything that surprised you about the process or anything that surprised you about where you sit now or, life now as compared to then that maybe previously you just wouldn't have considered a possibility?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's absolutely a lot of things. So since I've made the change as far as weight, there's been a slew of other changes that have come with it. So starting with the mind, I would say I am so much more aware of myself. I'm so much more aware of what's going on around me. I'm so much more just aware of people than I ever have been before. Much more so than I ever was. Like now, I consider like when I put something in my mouth, not only is it good for my body, not only is it good for my health, but am I eating things that are good for the environment, or are these things that are good for just other reasons as well. My mind, I'm much more positive, much more open-minded than I ever was before. I realize that not only is a healthy lifestyle eating well or having the right weight, or not just having that, but it's far beyond that. It's also having time for yourself, having time to make sure that you appreciate life, make sure that you're really being mindful, that you're thinking about what you're doing. That means everything that you're eating to everything that you're doing. Are you doing things that are purposeful? Are you doing things that you want to do? When you start having a wake up call saying, what, this could be, this could be the end of your life at this point. It can end here. You start thinking differently. So, really just having a much more open mind, more positive is a big thing. Having an active lifestyle is important to me now as well. It's not just it's not just checking the boxes, or it's not about just doing the right thing. It's really doing things that are very active. So my kids might say I'm bored or this or that or whatever it might be. I'll say that's okay. And a saying that my wife and I have with the kids is an intelligent person is never bored. So having them realize that using your mind and really using your intellect and really practicing doing something smart is also something that that's very important to do. So I'm not even sure what the question was, but my point is, there've been just a tremendous amount of changes, and now I think of eating as something that I do to live. It's not something I do do as the foremost thing anymore, and that's been a huge change for me, big time.
Yeah, that's all great. Before we started recording, you mentioned something to me that I wanted to come back to, and you basically said like just doing this interview is something that you wouldn't have considered doing before. But in this process, you become more vulnerable and wanting to help others, and also kind of you said you realize that you're not the only person out there. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Weight Watchers, which is one of the core pieces that, in fact, it was really the catalyst for getting to me to where I am, and now I do something even beyond what Weight Watchers does. But in Weight Watchers, part of the program is you speak, or you can speak, should I say. So it's a setting where you sit down, excuse me, in a group setting, and everyone has the ability to raise their hand. You're not forced to, but little by little, what I realized is that by being in this social setting where other people were explaining to me awkward things, like, oh, by the way, when I was bored last night, I'd go find out what's in the refrigerator and eat something, or I wasn't feeling well, I was feeling sad, so I went to go eat something. I said, you know what, I feel like that too, or that's actually strange because I feel the same thing, or you know what, I worked so hard, or this week was so tough. I'm going to go have an ice cream sundae, or I'm going to go, do something really big. What I realized was by people opening themselves up, and by people making themselves, I guess, in essence, vulnerable, and saying things that, to me, or what I interpreted at the time as embarrassing, or things that are very personal, was different for me. I grew up in a family where you didn't necessarily show your feelings, or it wasn't necessarily something that you were just outright with, where you would speak about your feelings, or at least I didn't. And what I realized little by little is, in that setting, by people opening themselves up, by people really putting their heart out there and making themselves vulnerable, it was helping myself selfishly, and it was helping the rest of the group as well. And then as I started exploring more and more, by watching YouTube videos and by listening to podcasts, now I'm like addicted to podcasts and YouTube videos. Whenever I have time, I'll listen to them. On my commute in and out to work, I listen to podcasts. And I realized opening yourself up, not me, but you as in anyone, opening yourself up helps so many people, that if I can help one person, if I could just help one person, and connect with them, then you know what? It would be worth me making myself vulnerable, or putting myself out there in a way where I'm sharing my personal information. And to be honest with you, this is one of the first public forums where I'm putting everything putting everything out there beyond what I've ever put out there before. That if I could just help one person, then that will be really good. Whether it be someone that's at my age or even younger, that says, "Oh, that can't happen to me," or you know what, I'm on that track. Then maybe that will connect with them. Then that would be really cool to me, really fulfilling. That would be really awesome. That would be something very special. So yeah, that's one of the big things that I'd like to do. Is I'd like to be able to be in a position where I could help just at least one other individual. If I could help 2, 3, 4, then that's even better. So yeah, just help one person helping another person for no other reason than just to do the right thing.
That's awesome. If you could have a conversation with somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, who's trying to figure it out, who maybe resonates with your story, or has maybe tried those crazy diets and is just maybe not had success, what would you tell someone at the beginning of this journey? Just some words of encouragement.
Wow. First and foremost, I would say, do it first and foremost for yourself. Really believe in yourself, that you might be saying to yourself that, you know what, I'm destined to do this, or these are my genetics, or this is the way I grew up, or, you know what, you only live once, so, YOLO, so therefore, I'm going to eat the way I want to eat. I'm not going to be told what to do, or whatever it is, just screw it. That's just what I'm going to do. Think twice about that. Really think about yourself. And if you have a family, or you have a spouse, or whatever it is, think about them as well, and really step out for a second. Be a little bit mindful about that, and just think about how important you are to yourself. And I know it might sound kind of quirky to some people, or awkward to some people, but it now sounds very natural to me. But really, really step out and say, really, am I getting everything I want out of life? Am I really enjoying myself the way I want to be? If you were like me, sitting inside of an airplane where your hips are wedged up against someone else, or you're thinking you're having a conversation with yourself before you get on a bus, or some public environment where you have to sit next to someone else, where you might be sweating on them, or you might be encroaching on their space, or whatever it is. Um, you know, while at the time I wrote it off as, okay, it's just something I need to do, I'll deal with it, I now realize how unnatural it was, and how much stress it was putting on myself. I would say to them, you know what, you're worth more than that. You're really worth the investment to be able to make to be able to make the change, to live a full life. I can tell you right now, Jason, from where I was, I didn't realize there are so many more things in life that you can do, and whether it be running in the trails and meeting someone else and just giving them a high five, or just smiling at them, or whatever it is, it just opens up a whole nother world. Or someone coming up to you and saying, you know what, by the way, how did you do it? What did you do? Like that's fulfilling to me. That's actually really, really, cool. Or inspiring someone. It's really cool. Being able to, walk up and down the steps and enjoy that. I'd be able to keep up with my children. Or actually, this past year, I ran a before school fitness activity program. I volunteered my time at my son's school to inspire young children in order to become fit. Like, to be able to be in that position to do those things is inspiring. So I would recommend that people look at themselves and say, you know what, damn it, you're worth more than that. You're worth living, not only just every single day, or as enjoyable as you want, but getting the best out of it and getting the best out of yourself. You're really worth that. And whatever you do, I don't care what it is, whether you like playing music, or whether you like running, or whether you like being with your children, or whether you like doing whatever it might be, it's magnified 100 times or 1,000 times more, believe it or not, by having a healthier lifestyle. You feel more positive, you feel better about yourself. Just even going clothing shop, going shopping for clothing is more enjoyable. You can actually buy things. You're not just limited to certain sizes or whatever it is, and you truly build up a higher level of confidence in yourself than you've ever had before. It's just awesome overall. To be honest with you, it's hard to describe, but trust me, when all is said and done, you'll feel so much better about yourself, and you'll respect yourself. I guess that's the word. You will respect yourself more than anything, and realize this life is bigger than what you've even experienced.
That's all great. And then if you could go back in time and have a conversation with, yourself whenever you unknowingly had 99% blockage, or, whenever you were 100 pounds bigger than you are now, what would you say to that person, either to get them maybe potentially started a little earlier, or just some words of encouragement?
Wow, that's actually a really good question. I would say, you know what, you're worth more than what you're worth more, and you're valued more than what you think you are. Okay. And that because of that, you should really value your body. You get your body once. Your body is given to you, whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent. Make it the best you can. Really push yourself and get as much as you can out of yourself, out of your body, and you're going to realize some really cool things. You're going to realize that you can do things that you didn't imagine that you can do before. I mean, to be honest with you, to say, you know what, you're going to embark on running 10 miles or 5 miles or whatever it is, I would have never thought of that. I would have said, you're out of your mind. I mean, just even, riding my bicycle, or writing 10 miles on a piece of paper is a lot. But now the idea of embarking on running 50 miles, whether I complete it or not, that is a different story. But my goal is just to finish it. It blows my mind. Is just to say that. So I would say to myself, think way outside of where you are, and you're going to realize that you could do so much more than what you can do. That there's so much more out there beyond just doing your 9-to-5 job. There's so much more out there than just eating. There's so much more out there than just getting through the day. And by getting more healthy, you're going to realize that you're going to meet awesome people, and that you're going to feel so much more better about yourself, and you're going to feel so much more better every day than you ever did. That's going to feel just amazing out there. I think that's probably some of the words that I would give myself, and it would be, you deserve to respect yourself a heck of a lot more than you are.
Yeah, that's all great. And then lastly, where can people, find out what you have going on, find out how the 50 miler went, and connect with you?
That's a great question. So as far as the 50 miler, they could probably go to Ultra Sign Up and see how that how that results. It's going to be the North Face Endurance Challenge. I think I'm going to do probably the Wisconsin one in September, so they can check me out there. If they want to get in touch with me, I have a Twitter account. I think it's like Matt R. White or something like that. They could send me an email at matt@whitesandbox.com. I'm also going to start a blog at healthyslant.com. It's just getting going, but I'm going to start a blog over there. But probably, email would probably be the best way, matt@whitesandbox.com. If they want to get in touch with me, I'd be more than happy to connect with them. I have some other accounts as well, but that's probably the best way for the time being, or that or Twitter or something like that.
Okay, great. Well, Matt, thanks for the time. You're an inspiration. Congratulations on everything you've done, and I'll look forward to hearing about more. And yeah, thanks, and hopefully we'll connect with you soon.
Thanks a lot, Jason, and keep up the great work. This is awesome. Your show inspires me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and have a great day.
Thank you.